Good morning,
Good morning.
everyone. I am Teresa
Morning.
Kirkhart, Education Director for CAAR, and I welcome you to the January Latte and Learn. This session is focused on open houses, and we have Tara Savage of Keller Williams Alliance to give us the tips and tricks. Tara, I will now hand it over to you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Tara. We're going to be talking about having a successful open house, and if I can figure out how to share my screen, then we'll be able to see the PowerPoint that I put together. But
we can see the PowerPoint.
What?
We can see the PowerPoint.
You can see the PowerPoint. Okay, good. Okay, so all right. So our agenda, we've got basically 5 parts, and the first part is the prepare, then signage, information, follow up, and then some scripts that you can use at your open house. So first of all, we're going to talk about what does it mean to have a successful open house. And that might mean something different to different people. So what is the point of having your open house? And if you think that your open house is not going to be successful unless somebody buys it, you might be really disappointed with your open house, because open houses rarely sell the house that you're in, but it can be successful in other ways. Obviously, having exposure about the property, even if someone doesn't buy the house, they'll probably talk about it, to someone else. And so that's just spreading the word. But you can also get honest feedback from people that have been there. It's good to know, what does just the general person think about the property and the price and that sort of thing. And then, of course, to pick up prospects of other potential buyers or sellers. So my thought is, if you get one solid prospect, and that means somebody that is likely to work with you to buy or sell, then that is a very good use of your 2 hours on a Sunday. So first of all, the number one thing is prepare. Don't wait until an hour before your open house to be prepared for it. So I have agents ask me, especially new agents that will ask me to hold my open house for me. And, so I've allowed that. And I one time had a new agent that the house is at Lake Monticello, and 20 minutes into the open house called and didn't know how to get there because she was following her GPS, hadn't been to Lake Monticello, couldn't figure out how to get in the gate. And that was obviously a disaster. So you need to know, especially if it's not your listing, you need to know all of the details about the property. So how to get there, how are you going to get in? Do you know how to use your lockbox? Is there something special to know about getting access to the property? But then you want to also know all the details about the property. So you need to, again, you should know all this stuff if you're not if you are the listing agent. But if you're not the listing agent, then you need to ask all the questions that a buyer would ask. How old is everything? Where are the property lines? What's the homeowners association like? So that you can answer any questions. You need to have the knowledge. And we'll get to this in a minute. It's not bad not to have all the answers, because that gives you a really good reason to follow up with people. But you should know a lot of the details about the property. You should come prepared with a printout of anything that is nearby that is just recently sold or is under contract, or anything that's similar that is active on the market. Because if you're going to be talking to people, then you need to be the source of information. I say this all the time, that buyers don't really care about you. And I think the mistake that a lot of agents make is that, people, care about the fact that they're a realtor, and they don't. There are a lot of them. So what they care about is what you can do for them, or what you know that they don't know. And when you can provide that kind of information for them, then you become valuable to them. But you have to have the information to provide, and you have to be the expert. So if you can talk to somebody about, the neighbor's house was on the market 2 months ago and it sold for such and so, or whatever. The worst thing to have happen is for a neighbor to come in and go, oh yes, this house down here was on the market last week and you don't know anything about it. Then the neighbor looks more experienced than you do. So you don't want that to happen. Obviously you need to advertise. So whatever it is that makes your listing or the property that you're holding open special are the things that you need to highlight in your advertising. So obviously you need to register your open house on the MLS so that it goes on Zillow, but make a social media post or ad. You can live stream your open house. You can always go around, even if it's just the 4 or 5 closest homes on the day before, and knock on the door and tell them, hey, I'm such and so, and I'm having the house next door open this weekend. Just wanted to let you know in case you're interested in coming by, or know somebody that you'd love to have live in your neighborhood. That makes an impact on people, because agents can see that you're working, you're out there, and you're not asking them for something, you're inviting them to your open house. So but figure out what it is that makes your listing special. Who's your target market? So this on here, obviously, if it's a first time home buyer price range, get some financing sheets from a lender. Make that the focus of your advertising. If it's a 1-level house, then you need to play that up. Focus that advertising on whatever it is that makes your property unique. Signs. So you can't have enough signs to direct people to your open house. If you have to have balloons or flags or that kind of thing, it's a good idea also to have an open Sunday sign writer that you can put on the sign 4 or 5 days ahead of your open house, so that everybody in the neighborhood knows it's going to be open on Sunday. Again, information. So make sure that you've got all of your brochures, you have any kind of information that's going to help a buyer or be able to answer questions for a buyer. Again, I said earlier that, holding on to some information, keeping it sort of in your back pocket, is not a bad idea, because you want to have a reason to follow up with people. And more than I remember when I was a new agent, I didn't really know what to do. And so, I would send, thank you cards or follow up or whatever in the mail, which, frankly is a giant waste of time because, again, people don't care about you. They care about what you know or what you can do for them. So, yeah. All right. So there's obviously sign-in sheets. A lot of people are reluctant to sign in, but if you don't sort of give them the opportunity to decline, then they feel obligated. So I try to, make it so that people don't feel like they have to give me their information. I don't necessarily, just because you filled out this form does not mean I'm gonna call you or send you an email. If you want to put that information on there, that's great. But the way that I do things is that I let people know that I'm not going to contact them unless they want me to. So one thing that we have done is to do these feedback forms. which I think is a kind of an innocuous way to get information and also get feedback on the property. So it asks for, the person's name, phone number, address, email, and again, they're going to fill out whatever it is that they choose to fill out. But it asks them direct questions about, what did you think about the house? What did you think about the price range? And do you have any interest in this house? And so I think it's a kind of an icebreaker way for you to sort of talk to somebody and get direct feedback on a property. Because I think sometimes people feel more comfortable, maybe if there's something that they don't like, maybe writing it down than saying it out loud, because I think some people feel like I'm going to be insulted if they don't like the listing because it's not my house. But we've all been there. So this, and then this is of course useful, hopefully. And what you can do when people come in is just hand them this form and say, hey, would you mind giving me a little bit of feedback after you walk through the house, and just go ahead and give it to them. Obviously have something for them to write with. So yeah, I'm gonna skip back to that for a second. And the last thing I didn't actually put on here was freebies. I know a lot of agents like to have things to give away, or cookies or water, something like that. Personally, I think a lot of sellers don't want people walking around their house with food. So I don't necessarily do that. I don't think it's a bad thing to have, some bottles of water to hand out or whatever, but that's not going to make your house more, your list, open house more or less successful. But certainly that is something that you can offer if you'd like to. The other thing I would say is I had another experience one time where I had an agent that I think it was actually the same person that couldn't get into my listing at Lake Monticello because she didn't know how to get into the gate, said to me that she baked. I baked for this. Well, the baking is the last thing that you should do. Okay. You got to make sure that you can get into the house before you worry about baking. So if you're going to do something special like that, then that's great. But make sure that you've done everything else ahead of that. Because if you can't find the house, then the baking doesn't matter. All right. So again, I've said this before. So follow up. Obviously, you need to be able to have a reason to follow up with people. And obviously you want to have their permission to follow up with them too. So don't just, just because their phone number and email was on a form doesn't mean that they necessarily want to hear from you. If you have something to tell them, then obviously use that information, that their email or phone number, to follow up and give them the information. So you want to be able to, have a conversation with folks in order to try to build some rapport. And, even if it's not about that property, then hopefully it's about something else. So, as you're talking to the person, and I'm going to go through this a little bit later because with my scripts, the object is to ask a lot of questions and find out what it is that they're looking for, or what it is that they want. And your job is to deliver that information to them. So it's always a good reason or a good thing to have a reason to follow up. So this is a little bit about scripts here. So obviously when somebody comes into your open house, you want to welcome them. We all have people that are neighbors that come to the open house, and they always are apologetic. Oh, I'm just a neighbor, and I always tell people, oh, I love to have neighbors because, it gives me an opportunity to tell neighbors about the house, and maybe somebody that might want to live in the neighborhood. So and of course neighbors are also potential future prospects. So don't be disappointed if there's a neighbor. And obviously, just to try to kind of start them talking. How did you hear about the open house? And, you know, sometimes they'll just say, well, I just saw the sign and I thought, and so obviously that person is, maybe they're just out, you know, doing whatever on a Sunday and saw the sign. But if they say, oh, I saw it on Zillow, then you know that they're looking, okay? And then at that point you say, oh, you know, have you seen any other houses today? You know, you're just trying to get them talking to you. And you're not going to get everybody to talk to you because some people just are not going to. And if you're like me, I'm kind of an introvert, this doesn't come natural to me. So if I were in any other scenario in my personal life, I'm not going to talk to people that I don't know. I just don't do that just because I'm shy. But professionally, you hopefully will learn to strike up conversations with people. And again, the key, I think, to making somebody interested in what you have to say is information. So, you know, even if it's, oh, you know, there's another house like this coming on the market, maybe because you've done your research and you know that's information. You know, if you're having this conversation, well, it's not really exactly what we're looking for. And then you can say, you know, just things like, are you looking in this price range? Well, yeah, something like this. And then you say, well, you know, there's another house coming on the market that I know of, you know, it's supposed to be coming on the market next week. Is that something and then hopefully you can, you know, show them some information. Or if they say this price really, it seems kind of high. Well, then hopefully you've got some comps there that you can show them other properties that have sold for, you know, for the price that your property is being listed for. But all of this really comes back to being prepared with information and doing some homework before you attend the open house, because nobody wants to talk to you just because you're cute. They want information, and you're the gatekeeper for that information, and that's what makes you valuable. So if you're having, you know, trouble trying to sort of build that rapport, then you need to practice, is basically what that comes down to. You need to use the Ford technique, and this is not something, again, that comes natural to me. But I don't necessarily go, oh, let me think about this: family, occupation, recreation, dreams. I don't think about that. I'm just trying to have a conversation with somebody. And part of the way that you kind of draw people out is asking questions. So the more questions that you ask that don't have yes or no answers, the more that you get people talking. So that was only 20 minutes. So I'm sure that there's got to be some questions or comments or something in there that.
So in our chat, we have some people are not willing to give their names or email and phone number. How do you approach that?
Well, if they don't want to give you that information, then I'm not going to make them. So, but the idea is you're not necessarily, if you're not going to get everybody. That's the first thing. You're just not going to get, people don't want to feel pressured. Just like when you go into a store and start to look around, and somebody, you know, is on your heels or whatever. I mean, it personally makes me want to leave. Now, if that salesperson has something to offer me, like something other than what I can see for myself, then I'm interested. people are really afraid that realtors are going to bug them to death. And so that's why they, tend to not want to give you any information. And unfortunately, because a lot of realtors do bug people to death, and that's why they don't want to do that. So, I always just try to start off sort of being hands off. There's a sign-in sheet if you wouldn't mind signing in, and some information right here. Again, with that feedback form, I have this form. I was hoping, would you mind, filling out this form for me? Just give me a little bit of feedback, your thoughts on the home when you're finished. But again, sometimes, people will write stuff down, but don't want to give their name and phone number, and that's fine. The idea, though, is to just get them talking. They don't have to give you their information to talk to them. You can still have a conversation with somebody without getting their phone number and their email. And hopefully in the course of that conversation, you can find out, whatever it is that they want. Maybe they don't know that they want it, but in the course of the conversation, you find out that they're looking around and, in this particular neighborhood. I mean, it might turn out that in the course of conversation, you find out that they have a realtor that they're working with. Fine, but it also you might find out that they're really just starting to look, and, they haven't been pre-approved with anybody, and you're starting a conversation with them, and hopefully by the end of that conversation, you've given them some information that's valuable to them, and then they want to give you their phone number or their email address. But if there are also some people that you're just never going to get them to talk to you, and that's fine. Let those people go. But you don't feel like I know that I have, had some people on my team that are like, oh, they wouldn't give me their phone number. They wouldn't, give me anything. Well, you don't have to get it. People don't have to fill out your sign-in sheets. I understand that, some people feel like, well, for security, well, they could write anything down. How would I know that that's the truth? So, the idea is that to get people to want to give you their information because you have something that they want. So
another question is, when you do your open house, do you follow them throughout, or do you just wait the main area and ask if they have any questions?
I do not follow people around the house. Nobody wants to be followed around. I think that it is very intrusive and makes people really uncomfortable. If you want to see somebody run away and not talk to you, follow them around the house. And I know that you need to probably let your sellers know that you're not going to be following people around, because it makes people uncomfortable. People want to feel like they have an opportunity to look through the house without being watched. And if sellers are not comfortable with that, then you should not have an open house there. An open house is not for everybody. I have, told sellers before, that they need to understand that all of their neighbors are coming into their house to look at their stuff, and they need to be okay with that. So if they're not okay with that, then we shouldn't have an open house. No, do not follow people around.
Another comment is, neighbors will often come to your open house to interview you.
Yes, that's right. And that's great. Because if you can show the neighbor without really, showing them that you're doing all the things to promote that property, then that's a good thing. So, I think that any person that walks in the open house is interviewing you. You just don't know it. You should take that as an opportunity. Every person who you are in front of and talking about real estate is an interview.
Mhm.
That's why you need to be prepared as the expert. You need to be able to talk about the property and other properties like it, and other, properties that are on the market, under contract, sold. You need to be the expert, so that you can speak confidently to anybody who asks a question about the property or anything like it.
Okay, another comment. I try to have a piece of information, buyer questionnaire, 10 mistakes buyers make. I have one copy, and if they want it, they can give me information, clear expectations. It's a great way to get them
Yeah,
to give
right.
their information to you.
That's true. That's true. Yes, that's a good idea.
And the
So
question,
again, that all goes back to, you know, if about that follow-up and building rapport and offering the buyer something, or the shopper, offering them something that you have that they don't, and it's usually information. And so anytime that you have something like that to offer a buyer, I think it's a good thing, because that is what makes you valuable to them again.
okay, another question. What do you say to prepare your seller for the results of the open house, knowing you probably aren't selling it that day?
Right. Sorry, my dog is, hold on. Shut that door. So I let's actually, during my listing appointment, as a matter of fact, when we talk about different things that we're going to do, we talk about open houses, and I am always pretty upfront with sellers to let them know that, first of all, open houses are optional. You don't have to have your house open if you don't want to. And you need to understand, like I said before, that all of your neighbors are going to come in and look at your stuff. So if you're okay with that, then we'll move forward with an open house. And again, you need to prepare them, that, because I think if you don't prepare them, sellers, they look at the open house as like this huge event that's going to change everything. and then that leads to disappointment. So I think you need to let sellers know that it's unlikely that someone is going to buy the house because they came to the open house. However, it's good to to get exposure for the property by having an open house. And just because someone who came to the house didn't buy the house, you don't know how many conversations people are having about the property that might lead to someone else buying the house. And certainly it does happen on occasion that the open house does sell the open house. It just doesn't happen very often. But if you let the sellers know up front what that expectation is, then they don't leave Sunday at noon and come back and expect to have a contract, because that's just not realistic. So
another comment is, I show the house if it is occupied.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I show the house if it is occupied, which means, she goes with whoever's looking at the house throughout, and this comes into play with professional standards, and knowing that, letting just these people come into someone's home, putting marks on the walls, this could definitely come up with a grievance against the realtor. So sometimes you have to be careful.
Well, here's the thing. What do you do when you have 5 people in the house? You can't follow them all around. And again, this goes back to setting an expectation with the owner of the home. If they're not comfortable with having people walk around their house, then they shouldn't have an open house. That is just the bottom line. I cannot supervise every person that comes into the home. There is a in the listing agreement, there's a portion that talks about, holding the realtor and the, brokerage harmless for things that might happen in the property. This happened many years ago, 20 years ago, or more, when my mom and I had an open house in Forest Lakes, and we were both there because it was like a first day of like spring, beautiful day. It was a house that was on the lake, and we knew that we were going to have a lot of traffic. We did a lot of advertising. We knew we were going to have a good amount of traffic, and so we had a big turnout. There was no way to walk around with everybody that was in that house. And the owner had left a small little trinket box on her, dresser that had some jewelry in it, and it disappeared. And I felt terrible about that. We both did. However, those are the kinds of things that you need to talk to your sellers about. You cannot leave things around like that. I mean, and again, talk to them about like what medications are in their medicine cabinet, because that's happened also, where somebody is, stolen medications or went around to open houses and stolen, drugs out of people's cabinets. And if you're having those conversations with your seller and they're uncomfortable with that, then they shouldn't have an open house, because again, it is just impossible to, supervise people. I mean, if somebody asked if they can use the bathroom, are you going to tell them no because they're going to be in the bathroom by themselves? No, you can't. So these are just the facts. So we have to be realistic about what's going to happen when people come into your home. If you're inviting the general public into your home, then you need to understand that there are risks involved with that. And if you're not okay with those risks, then you shouldn't invite the general public into your home.
Mm-hmm.
You boo.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, someone said something. Okay. And then another question is, do you ever have a separate time that you invite the neighbors in, like above and beyond the regular open house?
I don't think that's a bad idea. You can certainly do that. That's certainly something that you could try. I'm not sure how much success that you would have with doing that, but you could certainly, if you're going to do that, I would probably, one of the things that was on my list earlier was to, go around to the neighbors, just knock on their door the day before and invite them to the open house. You can always do a 30-minute, neighbor preview beforehand and let them know that you're doing that. And that's a great idea.
Okay, and then our last comment is, savvy young folks will just take a picture of the form and move on.
Again, you're not going to get everybody to talk to you and or give you their information. And so that all comes back to you're not going to force anybody to give you their information. The idea is to offer something of value. And again, 9 times out of 10, it's information, something that they don't know. And that's why they want to talk to you. They don't want to talk to you or give you their information just because you're a realtor. What you have to offer is something that they can't get elsewhere. And so you have to figure out what that is in having a conversation with them. I mean, hopefully, you have a conversation with them and then they give you their information. But asking for it necessarily up front and just expecting to get it is, I think, a mistake. You know, I think you're, you know, it's just like any other, it doesn't even have to be an open house. Let's say you're at a party and you meet somebody and you start talking about whatever, and things lead to real estate. And if you have information that they don't have, and you can tell them things that they don't know, then you become valuable. And then they want to give you their information.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments that could benefit the rest of us? Something maybe that you do at an open house that we haven't discussed? Anyone?
Another thing that my mom and I used to do, and it's easier if you've got, you know, somebody to partner up with to do this, but and of course this is back when there was a whole lot of houses for sale. And you could do this, but we used to do an open house caravan. So if we, let's say, like in Forest Lakes, we would have, you know, 4 houses for sale at one time. We would do an open house caravan, and so we would have each listing open for 30 minutes at a time. It was a little bit hectic, but you know, the market was very different then, and maybe we're going to get back to a more normal market where something like this might be possible. But we would have flyers that basically had all 4 of the listings on there, and then you know, listed in a row, like, so that if somebody came to the first open house, you're going to give them the information and tells them about the next open houses. And then, so while one person was in that one open house for 30 minutes, the other person was already setting up at the next open house, and we're going to be there for 30 minutes. Then the first person went to the third house and set up. Well, and so it was sort of a rotating open house. And I think that you have less opportunity, obviously, to spend time talking to someone. But I think for, you know, marketing purposes in the neighborhood, it was good for, you know, other homeowners to see that kind of thing happening, you know, in the neighborhood. And, you know, because then you it's just more exposure, and, you know, you become top of mind in the neighborhood.
Okay, we have another question. Is there anything that you do differently for a $100,000 condo versus a $500,000 home?
Anything I would do differently? I think the only thing that I say I would do differently is just the marketing, in terms of you know, what are you focusing on when you're advertising? You know, how are you, what are you emphasizing? And so maybe at the $100,000 condo, you definitely have financing information to, you know, to be able to talk to buyers about, you know, options that are, you know, low down payment or no down payment or whatever. Of course, condos are going to be a little bit more difficult, but again, those are all opportunities to have conversations with people. So, but otherwise, no, I don't really think that there's, you know, much difference in what I would do.
Here's a comment. Treat every price point the same or risk a fair housing violation.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another question. If another agent asks you to do an open house for them, what should they be giving you, or is it all up to the agent that is the backup?
Well, I think if somebody asks you to do an open house, then they need to provide you with they need to provide you with information so that you can do your job effectively. But if you are, I think too many people look at doing an open house as, it's just part of the job. No, it needs to be an opportunity. Those are opportunities that you have to, to pick up new clients. And so if you're not prepared, even though, let's say it's not your listing, if it does sell, you're not making any money from it. So you better do something to make it worth your while, so and so if that listing agent hasn't done the things that need to be done to make the open house successful, then you need to do them yourself.
Okay.
You're not just a warm body. So
Right. Yeah, I mean, if it's the day of and you still don't have any information, you better hurry. You better get that information.
Don't wait until the day of. So if you're expecting that other realtor, the listing agent, to make your open house successful for you, then you're wasting your time.
Okay, anybody else have any other questions? Let me say that we've had some great comments, Tara, that says this is great information. Can we get a copy of your PowerPoint that I can send out to everybody? That way they'll have the guidelines and kind of help them moving forward. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, well, then we appreciate Tara for sharing her expertise, and we hope that everyone has a great day, and we thank you for joining us. And our next one is going to be in April, and this is where the YPN group, they're going to be presenting a topic. I don't have that topic at this moment, but we will be putting that out as soon as they get that to me. And we thank you for joining us. And for those of you that still need your CE and you haven't completed that, we do have classes coming up at the end of the month, January 19th and January 26th, where I have put all the classes that you need for your 16-hour requirement together in 2 days. We would love to have you join us. And thank you and have a great day. Bye, everybody. Thank you, Tara.
Bye. Thanks. You're welcome. Bye.